continue the meeting. Open session, yes. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, moving on. The next one up is R8, Howard Natural Heritage Trail Project, Phase 2. Michael, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Locke, Executive Director of the nonprofit Harwich Conservation Trust. Thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed Phase 2 Boardwalk Connector project. Joining virtually is Nick Nelson. He's Regional Director for Interfluve, an engineering firm that is the only one of its kind that has seen eco-restoration projects through from design, permit, construction on these retired bog systems in Massachusetts. HCT has contracted Interfluve to lead the design process, both for the ecological restoration work for Cold Brook and the bordering wetlands, as well as the design process for visitor access enhancement. Nick lives in Cambridge, but he is also a Harwich native and graduated Harwich High. So go Harwich. Welcome, Nick. So I'm going to explain this project by virtue of a handful of slides, and I'll be quick. So before describing the Phase 2 Boardwalk Connector project, I'm first going to summarize the community benefits that will result from the overall eco-restoration project partnership comprised of HCT, Town of Harwich, State's Division of Ecological Restoration, and the federal government Fish and Wildlife Service. Thanks, Jamie. So this, just to orient everybody, the shaded green is the Harwich Conservation Trust, roughly 66-acre Robert F. Smith Coldbrook Preserve, so named for Robert F. Smith, founding trustee of HCT and the president for the first 27 years. And you see Cold Brook flowing under Bank Street through the preserve on its way south, then under Hoyt Road, under 28 into Saquatucket Harbor on Nantucket Sound. So the letter B on the map represents resting benches, and the P up in the upper left represents parking. So that beige shaded area is roughly 2 acres owned by the town, the site of the original fire station turned harbor master workshop building. Just to reference the parking aspect, Harwich Conservation Trust is in partnership with the nonprofit Harwich Fire Association and hopes to submit an application to the town selectmen after they release their request for proposals for use or acquisition of that property. That parking is our preferred parking area. It's our existing parking area. If not, that area will see an alternative. But first, a summarization of the benefits of this project, eco-restoration project. So the plan is to restore, naturalize nearly 1 mile of Cold Brook, an important fish passage for American eel that make their way up from Saquatucket Harbor through this preserve into Grassy Pond on the west side of Bank Street. Hope to restore up to 44 acres of wetland habitat. Will naturally reduce nitrogen before it reaches Saquatucket Harbor, thereby reducing sewer costs for the town and saving taxpayer money. Also, one of the goals is to enhance the visitor experience by improving public access, including both phases 1 and 2 of this Harwich Natural Heritage Trail project. Next slide, please. So this is zooming in closer to the preserve. And just to recap the parking again, preferred parking option 1. And for whatever reason, if that doesn't come to pass, we see parking option 2 further south, accessed off Bank Street. The area circled in the large circle red is the area that was already approved for funding by endorsement of your committee and vote of May 21 voters in support of $150,000 for Phase 1 of the Harwich Natural Heritage Trail project. That is to support the design and permitting and construction of a up to 1/2 mile wheelchair accessible design to Americans with Disability Act standards loop. Be a tremendous amenity for people of all abilities to Harwich, for the Cape, for that matter. If we look at the smaller circle of red, that's the proposed location for Phase 2. That's under consideration in your CPA funding application. That's a proposed 100-foot boardwalk connector with a funding ask of $75,000. I want to mention that it was gracious of the town Recreation Commission to endorse this project. They've endorsed both Phase 1 and Phase 2. You'll see a letter of support in your application. I want to point out the arrows that are along that we'll call the orange line. That's the proposed new stream channel course for Cold Brook. You see Cold Brook as it exists now flowing through the property. The proposed new channel is along that orange line, and you'll see where it goes right through the location for the proposed 100-foot boardwalk connector. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view. We're so grateful for all the volunteers that help us with our work. This aerial taken by volunteer Steve Furlong. And you see Saquatucket Harbor off to the upper right, Nantucket Sound beyond. And we get this oblique angle look at a portion of the preserve that includes the proposed location of the boardwalk connector. The blue line indicates the proposed new channel for Cold Brook. And then you see just below that the existing channel. Next slide. Here's what the berm looks like now, approaching the area for the proposed 100-foot boardwalk connector. I should also mention that the 100-foot boardwalk connector is designed to replace 100 feet of that 400-foot long existing berm. So an opening in the berm of about 25%. Next slide, please. Here's a recap of the budget. Total project cost, $175,000. Ask of your committee for consideration of $75,000. Towards that amount, $50,000 already approved through a federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant, and $50,000 we will apply for through a Mass Trails state grant. So you see the town, state, federal sources of funding combining to create that $175,000 total. Just by way of background, initially when we were looking at proposing the original CPA funding application last year's funding cycle, we were thinking about a $1,000 ask to fund at once. We thought about it. We saw the number of projects coming before you. We thought it best to break it down into two phases. During the review of the first phase last year, I heard it asked, what about other funding sources? We're always looking to raise other funds. So instead of $150,000, we dropped it down to a $75,000 ask. And now we're trying to source those funds from both federal and state government. Expense, you see summarized here, a little bit more detail in your packet. $40,000 estimated for design surveys, engineered plans that are ready to go for construction. $135,000 estimated for materials and construction for the total project expense. Those taken by our volunteer Jerry Beetham. We host many walks on the property. It's a very popular destination in the heart of Harwichport. Next slide, please. Why at this location? There's a rendering off to the upper right provided by Nick at Interfluve. One of the ecological restoration goals is to remove some of these berms which provide obstacles to wildlife movement and water flow, including along a 100-foot section of this 400-foot berm by replacing it with this boardwalk connector. So Cold Brook will be able to flow freely. Wetland habitats will be better connected on the north and south and on either side of the stream. And the area can better adapt to tidal changes with sea level rise expected long term. If the entire berm remains in place with that existing small culvert that's there now, it would create somewhat of a bottleneck for water flow over time. So we think this is the most cost-effective solution and makes the most sense for ecological restoration and pedestrian access purposes. Next slide, please. So here are a summary of the benefits, and this is not new, this concept. Here's a picture of a boardwalk with a stream crossing that was completed in Coonamessett River Restoration Project in Falmouth. So it's a recently completed project. Nick also working on this Falmouth project. So we hope to create a new visitor experience right here in Harwichport. offering 360-degree views of the restored Cold Brook and wetland. Will allow for Cold Brook channel movement and expansion over time, and tidal flow as well. Also more space for wildlife to pass beneath rather than climbing over with that berm as an obstacle. And that concludes the slide presentation. And Nick and I are glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up to the board. Joe?
No, I don't have any, I know pretty good, so.
Elizabeth?
I do. Just as I'm one of the people you talked about who started hiking in the past 2 years. Is the design complete? Because we came across this last week. There are so many people out hiking now, wondering if there's any possibility, if the design hasn't been completed, to put one of those cutouts on the boardwalk. Because sometimes you get a little people back up on the boardwalk. So that's my only thought. Otherwise, I love it. Thank you.
That's a great idea. This funding, if your committee endorses it and if voters approve it at town meeting, would fund the design of a viewing area or resting area on the boardwalk is a great idea for people to pause.
It's really handy at the ones that have it. I'm finding if just to get around people with little kids. Or whatever. Thank you.
John?
Yes, so Michael, if you talked about it before, I must have missed the business about rerouting Cold Brook. So can you talk a little bit about why you're doing that and what's involved in doing that?
Yes, yeah, and I'm going to let Nick speak to that, the rerouting of Cold Brook.
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Nelson with Interfluve. The rerouting of the stream, and sorry, I'm not used to seeing myself in such a big so everybody, is due to trying to renaturalize the stream. So right now it's in a series of ditches, one primary straightened channel through the bogs. And our goal is to bring that stream channel into the area it once was prior to the cranberry bogs being constructed. And we have a sense of where it may have been based on topographic maps and historical maps, as well as information of the substrate underneath the ground. So there were surveys done that told us where the peat was and where the deeper parts of the peat underneath the sand was. And that gave us a pretty good indication as to where that historical stream channel was. So that's generally the location of the proposed stream channel moving into that new area that you saw in the map that Mike showed.
All set, John?
Thank you.
Michael, is the stream channel change part of the ask?
No,
Thank you.
it is not.
All right, moving on. Carol?
Yes, thank you. So 2 questions really. One is, could you please speak to the design? I know it's at a conceptual stage, but the design of the boardwalk, and I guess in particular, I'm interested in the materials and elevation above the marsh plain, just in terms of vegetation growth underneath or transparency. Just if you could speak to that a little bit, please.
Nick, would you mind offering your experience in this area?
Sure. So as you mentioned, Carol, it's real early in the thinking about this one. So we're really fairly open to different design considerations for this. The ones that have been done of a similar design that we've kind of been using as a reference here that Mike showed are wood decking on top, stringers on the side, so that the decking is about 1.5 feet or so above the wetland ground surface for log surface. And then when it goes over the stream, it's obviously higher. So where it goes over the stream, we have the railing along the edge. But elsewhere, where it's not as far of a drop, we don't have the railing. We just have the metal or wooden edge to the boardwalk. In terms of the vegetation growing around it, I do have a couple of pictures that I could show if I can share my screen that might give you a sense of some vegetation growth.
Great.
I'll try to share here. Let's see. Okay, can you see that picture with the boardwalk and no vegetation growth? Great. So this is right after construction at the Coonamessett River in Falmouth. And you can see right after construction, you have, this is about 300 to 400 feet of boardwalk length across the river channel. And all this micro topography here was done with the excavation. The stream channel is a new stream channel over there. But then just a year later, this is what it looks like near the stream channel. And so all that vegetation grew up from the seed sources there. Not much of this was planted specifically. Some of the trees and shrubs were, but most of the grasses that came up on their own from the native seed source. And so I'll just zoom in here so we can see a little bit underneath the boardwalk. Certainly, we are not getting full plant growth all the way underneath this boardwalk. There's not much of any sunlight that can get through. Those slats in the decking are together. But you do see the vegetation growing underneath here, underneath the boardwalk in those areas and along the edge. So this is certainly an area, I'm going to try sharing now. Certainly an area of discussion that we can keep thinking about through design, to think about other types of designs that might allow more sunlight through for more plant growth and what that means for maintenance of these types of boardwalks. But currently, the design is pretty tight wooden slats.
Go ahead, Carol.
Great, thank you very much. That was really helpful, Nick. And I guess the other kind of question / comment, and it's kind of related to the materials question, is do you have a healthy contingency in your budget? Just because right now the cost of everything, and especially these kinds of materials, is really, really gone up. And just, we wouldn't want to see you not be able to complete the project if you didn't have the contingency.
That's a go ahead, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, really good question. This is something that we've been kind of struggling with on a lot of projects, is the cost escalations. It's not the typical annual escalation that we were used to prior to a couple of years ago. And it's one of the reasons that we sort of scaled this down from, a 200 or 300 foot long boardwalk to a 100-foot long boardwalk. Is that those costs are getting higher and higher. So Mike has been pulling together a number of different grant efforts to get the different funding together. And so our hope is to be able to fund this element of it. But for all of these projects, we are trying to get as much of that contingency incorporated as possible.
Excellent, thank you.
All set, Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
Mary.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Robert.
Yes. You're talking about opening up, and are you physically building a new channel that's going to go north under that bridge? And are you actually going to divert Coldbrook at some point? What forces the diversion through that area?
Essentially, yes. Did you expand on that, Nick?
So during construction, these cranberry bogs are actually really helpful to be able to use the ditches that are along the edges of the bogs to divert the water while the work is being done. So typically the contractor will build a bypass channel as their first act of work out there so that they can have active flow that allow fish to move back and forth through the project, but not within the active work area. So we'll use those ditches to allow that to happen while the new channel is, and that new channel will be actively constructed with an excavator, dug to the dimensions as designed. And then once the full channel is built and the large wood habitat is installed, then rerouted through the new channel and the bypass channel closed off.
Because changing Coldbrook right through an area which it shows there's no bogs right now, and it is, you can physically walk on most of that. So are you going to build a channel through that? Or are you just opening up this, the current bog, that specified bog, because it does have that very small culvert and it's very active, a lot of water flows through there.
They're not using any of our fundings for diversion.
Okay. I'm just, I'm curious about the description saying that, I think this description was that originally you did plan to put that bridge further south, correct?
Right, and
That was
that's
the expensive part.
That's right, Bob. Right. We were originally, just to elaborate on Bob's point, we had originally contemplated actually having this boardwalk further south, and it would have been a longer stretch. And as Nick pointed out, Carol's point about escalating costs, we also had a meeting in August with our engineers talking about that location closer to increased title exchange over time. And it just became cost prohibitive. So we thought, let's try and maintain the integrity of the trail system while still allowing for tidal flow, Coldbrook flow by moving it north and scaling it back.
So when you do walk over that bridge, there'll actually be flowing water?
Yes.
Probably? Okay,
Yes.
okay, that's it.
Just trying to keep it contained.
Yeah.
Kathy?
Okay, so I just want to clarify, so phase one of this project is not contingent upon phase two, and phase two is not contingent upon phase one.
Correct.
Correct, they don't really have that much to do together.
Correct.
Okay. So if you look at the breakdown of this, including the potential funding from the state grants, et cetera, I mean, this 175,000 boardwalk connector breaks down to $1,750 a foot for a boardwalk. So what will happen if this boardwalk is not built?
Meaning if materials or construction exceeds our income, or?
You do not get the funding for this. What happens to this particular space?
Well, we would have to probably reassess for sure the width of the opening, which would not be best from an ecological restoration standpoint. It would also reduce the visitor experience. Our vision is to put this in place, and we hope that your committee and the town would partner with us on that vision. That's my initial. Nick, did you want to offer any thought on Kathy's question?
Kathy, repeat the question.
No, it's at the per foot, and you're spot on with the calculation there, and it's in line some of the per linear foot costs that we've seen be put in place in Plymouth and found with similar construction, with a bit of contingency added on to that. So it seems to be a reasonable estimate at this point. If the funding is not received and we don't have the funding for that crossing, as Mike said, we need to evaluate. But it really changes the recreational component there if we can't have a crossing at that location.
Would you please repeat that number for me? I'm still.
I just said it was a $1,750 a foot altogether with the state funding, et cetera, which is all taxpayer money, I mean, right down to it. Just to, I have one more question.
Go ahead, you have
Okay.
the floor.
So, you referred to the benefits, including nitrogen reduction that reduces sewering costs to the taxpayers. So, I mean, the town of Harwich already has their phases in place for their sewering, okay? So I don't know what phase that is, that area of Saquatucket, but, how does this impact that really? In other words, are they going to take a look at, the nitrogen numbers before they move on to the next phase? Or is that already in, they're gonna be sewering that, and so how does this affect that directly?
That's a great question. So Kathy's asking about the overall eco-restoration benefit from a nitrogen reduction standpoint. So originally, the town funded a nitrogen attenuation feasibility study for this site to inform its local comprehensive wastewater management plan, this element. And the estimated savings was in the $6 million range by naturally attenuating or reducing nitrogen through the Coldbrook system before it got to South Harbor. I think that question, I'm guessing it's the former scenarios you posed, meaning they would evaluate the nitrogen credits, perhaps we'll call it, that the town might receive before the phase is implemented for construction in this area of town, but it's really best posed to perhaps Dan Pelletier as the wastewater superintendent. But that's my guess.
Okay. Okay.
I'll set Kathy. Any other board members? John?
I have two follow-ups. One is a follow-up to Kathy's. Did I understand what you just said as saying that the nitrogen reduction from the Coldbrook project is already into the sewering plans? Is that the primary gist of your answer?
It is an element that is referenced in the CWMP, the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. For details, I think you need to talk to somebody like Dan Pelletier.
Okay, so my other question is, clarify what this particular funding request is paying for. Part of what has to happen here for any of this to make sense, in my understanding, is the berm has to be deconstructed where the new flow brook is going.
Yes.
And that, however, is not part of this funding request. Is that correct?
Correct. It's part of a separate funding allocation
To clarify.
that's already in place.
All right.
All set, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you all very much. Thanks. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next. H2, East Harwich Union Cemetery Gravestones Reputation.
Just stepped outside for just a second.
Kathy, what was the number you calculated?
1,750.
It's just 750.
No, it's
Well,
100.
no, I'm talking about with the additional state
All in.
grant funding and
Oh,
everything.
okay.
Altogether, this
Okay.
board is gonna cost $1,750 a square, a foot.
Foot, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're
For
up.
something that's not natural.
Yeah, but it's
Okay. Robin, you have the floor.
block, they're defined.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Hi, Robin Kelly, the cemetery administrator for the town. So our project that we're submitting this year is the East Harwich Union Cemetery Gravestone. It's $118,800, which includes a 10% contingency fee. It's to clean, consolidate, and repair and setting of grave markers. There's 45 monuments in need of repair. 158 that need to be reset and new foundations. New bases, 265 memorials will be clean, consolidated, and headstones and footstones. All of the information on all of the gravestone projects that we do in town are, they take before and after photographs and make them digital now, so that way if someone wants to go in later and view a particular monument, they can see what happened before and then during the actual restoration and then afterwards. As most of you know, we came before the CPC last year for this article, and it was this year, and I put a lot more documentation in your packets, and I just needed to know if you guys had any questions for me on the packet.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Kathy?
Yes.
I'm on a roll tonight, so. A couple things. Last year, I walked to the cemetery.
Yep.
More with reference to the potential request for fencing.
Yep.
But it kind of bled into the other one. And I noted at that time that there was a real lack of maintenance surrounding the property. I walked the property again today, just for frame of reference.
Yep.
And there hasn't been a single change. So I guess my question is one of the things that you put in your request was that, you know, we need to make sure the grounds are safe for the people that are looking at these, you know, headstones, et cetera. And in my mind, if they're not gonna maintain the cemetery except for mowing, what are we doing? I mean, there's lots of, there's trees down, there's lots of additional, scrub, growth and that kind of thing that sort of has upended some of the stones, leaning into some of the stones. If we're not gonna do any of the maintenance, then why would we spend the money to change, upgrade all these headstones? I'm just curious.
So I actually went to the cemetery today as well, just to make sure. I always want to make sure there's no more headstones have fallen over, and did note that exactly what you're saying. When we do a gravestone restoration project, though, if there is a monument that's being uprooted by a tree, a person who gets the contract, they have to eliminate that growth around that, so that when they reset in the monument, it is reset correctly and that the vegetation doesn't grow in. That being said, I did notice, as you did there today, that there was a lot of down trees on the wood line, brush that might have fallen off the trees, and maybe somebody just pushed it to the back, which does need to be removed, so I did put in a work order for that. And I noticed that there was some of the railings, a couple of them were bent, that need to be taken out for a safety hazard.
But it's been a year. It's been a year since I looked at it, and nothing's happened. And so, and my point is that this has been something prior year, been felled for a long time now. So what is the sort of, I mean, since the whole thing last year was about who had, the rights to,
Right.
The cemetery, and since the town documentation is required to provide maintenance for the cemetery, why are we not providing maintenance for the cemetery?
Well, I guess I would have to have the maintenance guys from the cemetery come in and address that. I don't oversee them, but I am going to put in a request to them to get over there and clean it up, because it is in need of being cleaned up. I agree with you. I saw it today, and I am agreeing.
Okay, but it's been like a year, and nothing has changed. I'm done.
Carol?
Hi, Robin. Can you to the the procurement or the bid you received for this service, and whether the selection of the provider was based on price, or were there some other considerations in the
So,
selection of this?
person that gave us the price quote for the packet, she is the same person who did the restoration project at the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. I don't know if you were able to go and view the monuments over there. She did an amazing job. I mean, if you go over there today and take a look at those monuments, they look better today than they did when she finished it 2 years ago, because the stuff that they treat the stones with, every time it rains, actually get brighter and brighter. So if you go into Mount Pleasant today and look at the monuments that are over there, it looks fantastic. And we never got so many compliments as the project that she had completed from Mount Pleasant. I mean, I think her work was exceptional.
Go ahead, Carol.
So just, she was the only proposal that you,
I only got one price quote.
Yep.
So out to bid, we will get, last time we got 5 different people who bid on the one that we are doing currently in Pine Grove Cemetery. I think more people now are doing gravestone restoration than ever before, because years ago when I'd go out, I'd be lucky if I got 2. So I think more and more people are actually doing it now that are certified. So we require that they have certifications and that they have completed all sorts of, you just can't go in there and slap together a monument, because if you look at some of the older cemeteries and gravestone restoration projects, you'll see some people use cement, or they use other things that aren't approved by the Center for Gravestone Studies. So you want to make sure that they've taken classes there, that they are right, and they know what they're doing and what they're using. Each different type of monument gets different types of treatments. So you don't do the same thing for a marble as you would do for a slate. So you want to make sure they know the difference.
thank you.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Mary.
One question for you. If you haven't gone out to your RFP process yet, when do you expect that to happen? And would you expect to have that completed prior to town meeting, or even prior to our vote in February?
Oh, another bid process? So I did go out and get a price quote, an updated price quote from her.
Right, but you just said when you go out to bid for it, you would.
So, yeah, if this gets approved,
Right.
then we'll go through the whole bid process.
So you wouldn't do that contingent upon funding prior to town meeting?
No, because usually the bids only last for 60, 90 days. So, I mean, we would,
Well, you can always do it subject to appropriation and
Yeah.
ask them to hold the price to July. You know,
Okay.
sometimes it's better to know what those numbers are before we vote versus.
right. So I know
and
that.
vote and then have you
Yeah.
come back and say, oh, we were 50,000
So when we went out for the one in Pine Grove, it was significantly less. There was a new guy that bid, who still hasn't started, but, because he just finished up his last 2. He had 3 bids come through at one, and he got all 3 of them. So, he just finished up the other ones, and now he's going to start ours. So he was like a $30,000 savings. So we'll be giving back money from that last Pine Grove when he completes it.
I appreciate that. Just, it is, that doesn't always happen.
Okay.
So, and there have been plenty of times where bids have come back higher than what we've approved, and then you're behind the 8 ball if you don't have.
I
the
would
funding.
be, if you guys recommend, I know that you guys are going to make recommendations to us at the end of the thing, so if that's a recommendation, then I would definitely do that.
All
All
set.
for me, yep.
Joe.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I have to go walk this cemetery tomorrow. Shame on me for not doing that, listening to Kathy. But it's a great point that you're gonna spend that money and it's gonna look like not nice. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
just to nail this down, who cuts the grass?
The town,
DPW?
the DPW cuts the grass.
And is DPW responsible then for all of these fallen trees?
The trees that had fallen, I don't know when they fell, but they're all they're not in the cemetery. They're like against where the fence was, against the back line of where the property is. They're not in the cemetery on the ground.
Okay. All right.
They are down, and it doesn't look appealing. I agree with Kathy.
And Mary, can you re-explain the timing that you made mention of? I'm a little confused about what you're saying, like, about getting the
So my
thing,
question
getting the
was-
thing right the first time?
My question was whether Robin was going to go through the procurement process before we voted in February or before town meeting, and
Oh, okay.
so that we'd have a real number that's set in stone versus
Yes.
a price quote that may go up or down.
All right,
Just my question.
thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Robert?
Kind of just to follow up with Mary, will the procurement office allow you to do that? I thought they didn't do bids unless you had the money was approved by town meeting.
So sometimes you can do procurement, so I would defer to the town administrator as the
Okay.
procurement officer, but there have been other projects that
Okay.
have come before us, and I don't think I'm crazy, that
No,
have
you're absolutely,
gone to bid before,
Okay.
for example,
Yeah.
an ambulance, I think, or some other
Yeah.
thing. They had gotten bids before money was approved, and
Okay.
it's contingent,
That's my knowledge.
yeah.
And I do have to agree with Kathy. I walked it earlier this year, beginning of the summer, and it hadn't even been mowed yet. And it's definitely must be the orphan child or something, because I don't think they do take care of it. And that really should be noted on this. And I do assume that everything's cleared up as far as title and all that. That's now been resolved?
So in your packet, we did put when it went to town meeting.
Yeah?
So it was Article number 60, February 7th of 1949.
Yeah, but the trouble is it was never transferred at that time.
So it's not, it transferred, just the care and custody of the cemetery portion of it was, not the land. So
Okay.
we took their perpetual care money, so they gave us their money and
Okay.
asked us to take care of it. But we didn't get the land underneath, we were just supposed to maintain the cemetery.
So, but that is for CPC money or CPA rules,
well,
right?
excuse me for 1 second. You took the perpetual care money. When did that happen?
In 1949. We got their perpetual care money from all of those that were listed on there and into the accounts downstairs.
Okay, and most recently, we continue on with?
There's no more.
There's nothing new in there?
No, there's
Since
nothing.
that time?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. And the only other thing is, I think, again, the quote was, or appraisal was updated person for this
Yes,
particular
yeah, she
article.
updated it because when we went back out from last year, 6 more stones were leaning from the previous year.
So you're asking a little more this year than you did last
Correct,
year? Okay,
correct.
fine.
Yeah. And there is a Revolutionary War and a Civil War soldier so far that
Right.
I know for a fact that are buried in there. And I'm working on the Revolutionary War and Civil War soldiers for a different CPC article for next year, but not this year. But so there are historical significant markers in the cemetery that are in danger of getting lost or damaged beyond repair.
All set, Robert?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
I'm good. I remember this
John.
from last year.
Yeah, so I only have one question, now that we're talking about money, which is, you included 10% contingency in the description, but on page 4 where you put the cost estimate, you didn't include that, and which doesn't seem right to me. It ought to be part of the cost estimate.
I put it on the front page.
Yeah, but it's not,
Oh,
it's
so-
detailed, but it just seems inconsistent to me. On page 4, you don't have that 10% in there.
Oh, I see.
I don't think that's
Cost
right.
estimate.
oh, but I only put 108 in the cost estimate. I didn't add the contingency on that. You're correct. So 108 was the price quote, but I didn't add the 10% contingency.
Cost estimate include the contingency?
It
Just a point.
never,
I'm not sure.
so that is just how the administrator told me to put it, so
Okay,
I'm
all right, all right.
sorry.
I won't question the administrator.
All set, John?
Thank you.
Kathy?
Just have one additional question.
Yep.
So what happens to the headstones that are not repairable?
So right now, all of them are repairable. There are 2 that are brownstone, and I don't know if you noticed of those memorials are starting to completely flake off. So pretty soon you will not be able to read them. In that case, those stones, they'll be able to try to seal what is left of them, and that's about it. There will be no way to repair them any further than they are today. So some memorials are broken into several pieces, and say we have a missing piece. So if it's a marble, they can try to find a marble piece that would blend in to make up the missing spot, but they won't know, it won't be exact. But what they're trying to do is recreate most of the ones that are there that are broken into pieces. It appears that all the pieces are there, but they dig them out, or laying flat in the dirt, and they need to be dug out.
And so, a lot of the headstones that have like sort of heaved up from the earth,
Yeah.
so do they actually re-dig?
They dig out the entire foundation.
Sort of what you're saying then is that the topography of sort of the entire cemetery kind of changes a little bit.
So what they'll do is if something has been like from tree roots or whatever have you, they dig down around that area, and then they put down usually in those memorials, the base is usually stone, like a crushed stone, not like a cement. So they would redo that, and then they would put all of the other materials back. They would then put it back all the way up to it's a flat flush marker, flat against the stone like it was when it was originally installed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just was curious.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't go walking around inside the cemetery. Okay, any more questions for the board, please? Hearing none, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Robin.
Up next, R10 Brooks Park Ball Basketball Court Project. Be presenting.
Hi, Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. Hold on a second here. Here to talk to you guys about pickleball once again. I think we could positively say that it's not a passing fad anymore. So this project includes the funding in the amount of $245,500. This would include the construction of 4 more pickleball courts, which is equivalent to this court, the size. And it also includes the expansion of the half basketball court that's currently there to a full court, which would give us 2 full courts at Brooks Park. We saw the need, first off, pickleball. We had last spring and summer, our final tally, we had 413 people signed up for spring and summer pickleball. So it was a very crowded and busy place. There were significant wait times for people that were there, part of the program. The bigger issue that we saw was that with all those people, we weren't able to do anything else. There was not a lot of open play at the courts available for people to just drop in and play. We would like to really do some youth programming there in the summer, especially. The hard part is, the pickleballers are usually done around noon, 1 o'clock. Nobody wants to play in the afternoon. It's too hot by then. So the courts from sometimes 7 in the morning until about 12, 1 o'clock were packed full. No room for anything else. So these 4 new courts wouldn't be specifically designated just for these other things, but it would open up possibilities. Youth programs to go along with tennis lessons in the summer, open play, more tournaments, more private bookings for tournaments, which brings in more revenue for the town. As far as the basketball court goes, we see the need for that. The basketball courts at Brooks Park are really the only open public courts in town. And this past summer, we did our normal summer basketball clinic that we do. It's a huge public clinic that we usually do in the community center. We ran it fully outside this summer because of COVID. And it was very popular outdoors. People love the outdoor play. So what we'd like to do is establish a clinic indoors and outdoors in the summer, having both as an option, as well as a summer rec outdoor travel league of courts. There's other towns that have travel leagues, so we could play intertown. It would just be a great thing for youth. It would also open up, like pickleball, more open play, which is what's needed at the basketball courts as well. That's the main part of the project. Let me just see if I have anything else. Those are the reasons we're looking for it. Like I said, pickleball is expanding and expanding. It's not a passing fad. It's getting bigger all the time. They play year-round. They stay outside as long as they possibly can, and then they move to the cultural center through the winter. So that's everything I got, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I'm going to open it up at the board, but I'm going to make this statement first. I had told two individuals had sent letters that we would invite them to this meeting. I dropped the ball. Chance to invite them. So I want you to be aware of it. I am going to invite them to one of our deliberations when we discuss this, in all fairness.
I spoke to one of the ones you're referring to just the other day, and he was well aware of the meeting. So.
Well, again, that's on the chair. All right, so I'm going to open it up to the, we're going to start with Carol.
Thank you, Eric. So just one quick logistical. So the tennis court that would be displaced by these, it would be permanently displaced by the 4 new pickleball courts?
No, this would be a brand new court.
Oh, okay,
Right now,
it's
there's
just the
4
size.
tennis
Okay.
courts. There's 8 pickleball courts.
Okay,
This would add 4 more pickleball courts, so an additional tennis court-sized
got it.
area.
Okay.
Yep. So it's all new. Yep.
Okay, thank you. And can you talk, like, I've heard a lot about pickleball too, never played it, but is it one age group? Is it multiple age groups?
Well, that's part of the appeal of pickleball, is that it's multi-generational. For older people, it's very popular. People that played tennis, that as they get older, their range of movement's decreased a little bit. So it's a smaller court. It's a quarter the size of the court. The net's lower, uses wooden paddles and almost like a wiffle ball. So there's still a lot of movement involved, but not quite as much. It's also great for kids, and they're doing it a lot at gym classes in elementary school and middle school. It's great for hand-eye coordination, without moving, and it's a great introduction to tennis. That's why we want to kind of incorporate it into our tennis lessons in the summer as well.
One other quick
Go ahead,
follow-up.
Carol.
So are most of the folks who you're seeing come in and use these courts from Harwich, or does it attract people from the surrounding towns?
The way we do it right now, so strictly because of limited space and so many people, it's Harwich residents only, except we do have a grandfathered list of non-residents that have been with us since the very beginning. So we would be able to open up the registration a little more, but like I said, we want to make people too that just want to drop by and try the game out. Yep. So, but it's I'd say 90% or more Harwich residents.
Thank you.
Yep.
And,
What's that,
that's
Carol?
all set. Yep.
Kathy.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna ask about whether the younger people were playing,
Yeah.
which apparently they are.
Yep.
Just a technical question.
Sure.
This was never signed, the application,
Oh, okay.
so that needs to be taken care of.
Okay, I could do that.
Good get.
Yep.
Eric, just roughly, the breakdown between the 2 projects, so basketball versus the pickleball?
Yep.
What's roughly, I don't have it in front of me, what's roughly the difference?
The price?
Price? Yeah.
Yep, I got it right here. So the quote for, the main quote we got was from Lawrence Lynch, which has done a lot of our projects over there. All in, the pickleball court is around $136,761 was their quote.
Okay.
And the basketball court is $67,493. And then the remaining of the ask is contingency.
Okay, and my only question is wait times and stuff. I've been over there a lot. People tell, I play a lot of tennis, they tell me
Yeah.
not to play this game.
There's a rivalry
It's gonna
there.
mess
Yeah.
up my tennis.
Well, that could be.
That's true, but a lot of my friends here play.
Yeah, yeah,
All summer long,
sure.
all fall, until the snow comes. And I'd be really curious to hear from those other 2 people, and from you if you want to add, on wait time stuff. I've been over there only on the weekends when I'm riding my bike by, and man, there are a ton of people there.
Yeah, and
I could see the need if
yeah, and we see, I see it every day in the summers. It's just packed the whole time they're there. And one of the people that was in opposition to this, like I said, he came to my office the other day to discuss it. He brought up the fact he didn't think it was as crowded as we were making it.
Yeah.
But he was playing during a specific time. He didn't see the whole time frame of the, the park. Also, he doesn't hear the, the people that we do turn away. So that's the big part of it, so.
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you.
All set, Joe. John?
I have no questions, thank you.
Yeah, just to fill you in, there is a lot of statistics out there on growth. I don't know if you are aware of what the average growth is in the country.
Oh, in the
last
country?
year.
No, I know Harwich, but.
It's 28%.
Wow, okay.
And it is very split on all ages. That's
Yeah.
what's so interesting. Almost evenly split. I won't need to read them, but it is all ages for sure. But my main question is, what about lighting? Are you going to be asking for lights at some time?
No,
for it?
actually, that's a good question. The new lights are actually going in January. So that's just a little side for you guys, but.
We have funded that. One.
Yep, we did fund that. So, but the way the lights are going to be a pole, right near where that is, what would have to be done is a little fixture added on to the other side of the pole.
Okay.
We wouldn't have to put in any more poles, run any new electricity. It'd just be a fixture, which would be very low money. It wouldn't be a CPC.
Okay, so that's not
request.
even counted in the budget at all, or?
No, we're not planning on lighting it right off the bat. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
No, that's it.
All set?
Yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
You said something about, it stops at like 1 o'clock, but you meant like the grown-ups stop at 1 o'clock and then the kids can use it in the afternoon,
Yep.
right?
We can do it in the afternoon. It's just across the board. It seems whether it's families, our program, drop-ins, everybody wants to go in the morning because it's cooler. So you see a huge drop-off in the afternoon, no matter who it is. We've tried to offer it more for the program, the seniors that do the program in the afternoon, and they're not having it.
What about youth?
Youth-
Because
youth-
when I was a kid, I would play tennis at 102 degrees.
Yeah, see, we try not to do that. Just we try, because we run into issues with people overheating and stuff. It's a little more. So I was the same way when I was a kid, but we do our tennis lessons in the morning until 12 o'clock for that very reason. We have to be really diligent about keeping an eye on that, even with our summer camp, with the kids going outside and that kind of stuff. So that's the hard part. Yeah. Yep.
We didn't have air conditioning back then, so we weren't used to air conditioning. That was normal hot weather.
Actually, that really surprises me you said that,
Why?
because it brings back memories.
Yeah.
Mary, you have the floor.
So, really, my only comment is you didn't reference planning board on your list of people
Oh, I'm
that you
sorry.
have to see. So, just a reminder that you
Okay.
probably have to do site plan review again.
Will do.
Because if these pickleball courts weren't in the last iteration, they're gonna have to come back in for the next.
Got
So
it. Okay.
That's really my only comment.
Okay.
It does have to come before historic
Right,
district.
it does, and Bob's right, it is Brooks Park too, so it has to come to historic
Is
as
it,
well.
the only thing I was wondering about that, and I'd be happy to come to historic,
Yeah.
but I thought it was only building structures that would have to come to
No,
historic.
because it's anything sight lines.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And for planning, I mean, I guess I would just recommend you talk to John Eidman, but
Sure.
I would think they would have to be sited on the ground anyway.
Okay.
As a part of the site plan.
Yep. Got
So
it.
there may be a change in the works, but
Okay,
I would just recommend asking him.
you got it.
Any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Eric, thank you very much for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, next. Next thing I should say to you folks is we are not having the meeting on the 16th. I know some of you would be happy. Okay, Jan, when would our next meeting be? Deliberation.
January 13th,
All right, so, does anybody have a problem with that particular date? January 18th,
Is that a Thursday? Jan?
22.
Yeah.
sent this out to you guys.
16 is,
No.
all right.
So, Carol,
Yes, it looks good. Putting it on my calendar.
Joe,
Yep.
are you going to be here?
I'm going to talk to you about that later.
Robert,
Yeah, I'm fine, 13th, I already got it
okay,
in.
Mary,
I think so.
Elizabeth,
Yes, I get home 2 days before.
John,
Not going anywhere.
Kathy.
Yeah, yep.
Again, one thing for the board members, please don't discuss what your travel plans are or may be. You're simply unavailable. Thank you. So, are there anything, go ahead, Kathy.
I just wanted to, a reminder that our executive session, discussion is confidential, all of it.
Okay.
And to
Is
protect
there
the papers that
anybody,
we're gonna
anything
get.
anybody wants on the next agenda?
Are we,
We start deliberation.
we start deliberation, and are we asking, since he couldn't be here today, are we asking Joe to come back, or are we just going on what we've been given?
We're gonna
then?
go on what we have.
Okay.
If he happens to show up, that's fine. He'll be made aware of it, but we're starting our due diligence. So, the other thing to mention was, I'm in touch with Amy Kessler from KP Law.
Wessel.
Kessel. From KP Law. The documents were scanned, the external documents were scanned from the office to their office, and she's not reviewing them directly. There's a person within KP, within realm, that deals specifically with CPC law. That person, I don't have the name yet, that person will be the person to do the overview. So, Kathy,
Just that, 2 of the applications were withdrawn, correct?
yeah.
So both the Harwich beautification and the bike
I was going to
lanes.
discuss that until we get into
Oh, and
deliberation.
bike.
Okay.
Well, people might want to know that knowledge if they are preparing for the next meeting in terms of numbers.
Okay, did we send out an email to that effect?
Or, biking, yes.
And the other one, yes.
Both of them, you've got them both. All right. Is there anything anybody wants on, John,
Oh, well, it's not on the agenda, but I have a question for you, Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
which is, I have noted that on the front page of the Harwich website, there is a call for volunteers. And I don't know if any of you have looked at that, but there is no mention of CPC in the call for volunteers. So I just wanted to raise that.
I'll mention that Monday night when I meet with the Board of Selectmen.
Do we still have an open?
Yeah, there are
Oh,
only 8
that's
of us.
right, that's right.
Kathy?
Who am I?
I'm sorry, Mary.
I think the call for volunteers that I saw was particularly for the comprehensive
Right.
No, it's
plan as
for
well.
Openings on town committees. Wait a
Okay.
minute, let me,
We're also looking for, specifically for volunteers to work on the local comprehensive plan as well, which is a huge project. So while you're talking about that,
well,
volunteers.
He doesn't
for
want to
that
be,
as well would
we
nice.
don't be left out, that's right, I got it.
I'll just,
I'll get
they've
it.
got the Agricultural Commission, the Conservation Commission, which actually has a full complement right now. Council on Aging, Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee, anyway, I won't go through them all.
There are lots.
John mentioned that
Yeah,
Monday
okay.
night,
I
that we
made
still
my
need
point.
one,
Yeah,
and that's in a selectman's appointment,
yep.
so.
Oh, maybe,
You might also want a representative on the plan for the local comprehensive plan as well, just as an aside.
Okay, when,
Because that is the local comprehensive plan that is going to drive how we want to see Harwich for the next 10 years. It's probably a 2-year project. John Idman is leading the charge with it, and he did put a call out for that, so I'm just saying if there's somebody that has time and wants to get into the nitty-gritty on this board, you might want to roll up your sleeves and participate. be a-
Okay, well,
It'll be a big project, but a really, it's a really important project.
at
Because it will
least,
talk about all of the growth townwide for the next 10 years.
at least for the entire board. At any given time, I've made specific requests of a board member to do a particular project in some way, shape, or form. So that gives every one of the board members ownership. Now, I understand what you're describing, and on top of that, the Housing Committee was asking for a representative from the CPC at the initial stage. I don't know where that went, because you were
hasn't
part
gone-
of that and Joe was part of it.
It hasn't gone farther yet. It's still in the works with the selectmen.
So, and that's fine. If one of you two choose to volunteer, that's fine with the chair. But I would like that come back to the committee, just to make sure there isn't someone else sitting on this board that wants to be part of that.
Well, remember, Joe is your existing housing committee.
I understand that, but
Representative.
here's the catch to everything. A couple of the selectmen, appointments to any committees, not ad hoc, any general committee goes before them for,
To do, right?
so I'd rather hear board vote who that person will be, and then move it forward. That's all. So,
Gives that person more heft.
anything else, Bernie, any of the board members? Now what? Oh. I'm not, no. No. Any questions? Nothing for the agenda? Monday night, if you choose to show up, you're more than welcome. It's gonna be a change of scenery for the Board of Selectmen, trust me. So, can I have a vote to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Let's go home.
So